Disney tackles yet another classic from my childhood in their live action series that they are doing. But what did they change? And did it work? That's coming up next. But first, go into the description and click on the link for a free fantasy novel that you can download, and then like and follow and share and all that fun stuff on this channel. All right, let's do it. Welcome to the YouTube channel, Great Stories Change the World, where we talk about great stories, because I really do believe that great stories do change the world. And so here I am, a fantasy science fiction author, and I'm going to go over different movies and TV shows and books to look at the storytelling so we can get better at telling great stories, because again, I believe they do have great impact in our world. We love stories, and stories change us, and we love that about them. So today we are going to look at Peter Pan and Wendy. This is a classic story. It's in the public domain now, so anyone can do anything with it. So you've got all these different things happening with it. And we love these movies. We love Peter Pan. We love all the different mythology around it and all the different kind of stories. And the cartoon that Disney made from back in the day, and Walt Disney, it's got some great songs. It's got great animation. It's one of the classics from the Walt Disney sort of vault, the original classic vault. And to be honest, full disclosure, it was one of my favorites, okay? Now, I liked a lot of the Disney films. I love Bambi and Pinocchio, and Peter Pan was right up there. I love The Jungle Book, and I liked the princess cartoons. They were pretty cool. I mean, I didn't just dismiss them because I was a guy. I liked those too. But Peter Pan was more my speed, man. I mean, you're fighting a pirate and you're telling great stories and you're flying in the air. It's kind of had that magic superhero kind of thing going for it. And so when I found out that they were doing Peter Pan and Wendy as one of their live action, I got a little skeptical. I got a little excited, but I also got a little skeptical, because if you've been paying attention to my TikTok or my Instagram or any of these reviews that I've been doing here on the YouTube channel, not all of these retellings and live action versions that they've done of these movies have gone well. In fact, I don't think many of them have. I can kind of tell you two that I have loved the way they retold in the live action from the original story. All of the other ones, they changed a lot, and it just kind of didn't work. So that's kind of full disclosure as we're getting into this. There'll probably be some things I did like and some things that I didn't like, because that's just kind of how this works. And we have to be really careful when we do these retellings. And retellings are huge right now, by the way, with old fairy tales and different public domain properties that are coming out. So we have to be careful about these sort of retellings, because you're dealing with nostalgia, but you also want to do something new with it, or else why make it, right? I mean, why remake it shot for shot? They could just go back and watch the original. So let's get into Peter Pan and Wendy. Now, there's going to be a few spoilers in here, so this is your warning before you get going too much further into this. There'll be some spoilers. I won't give everything away, but I'm going to talk about the main elements that are different, so those may not be a surprise to you if you watch this, if you haven't watched it yet. So the movie starts out in the classic Disney way. It pretty much follows the classic Disney cartoon that you had in the original, right? There's Wendy, there's Michael, there's George and his wife, and Angela Darling, and you had all the different sort of characters there, and Nana the dog, and they get in trouble, the kids get in trouble, and the dad is like, why can't you just grow up? Now, the dad, by the way, is played by Alan Tudyk, or whoever the guy is from Firefly, and he's done voices of everything from Star Wars to all sorts of things. He was pretty awesome doing his British voice. But it kind of starts out that way. And so they have to go to bed, and the mom, who was from Lost in Space, the remake, which I actually did like that. I liked what they did with Lost in Space on Netflix. Just as an aside, the mom is from that show. She played the mom on that show. So it was cool, and it was nice to see it live action. And Peter Pan comes in, obviously, like he does. And, who did you expect? And he's chasing down his shadow and all the different things, and hands her the kiss, or she hands him a kiss, or all that stuff, right? And so it starts out the normal way, and then pixie dust, and they go flying off to Neverland because Wendy doesn't really want to grow up. She doesn't want to go and kind of face her life from here on out. She's not ready to grow up. She's not ready to leave her brothers and fun and all that stuff. So it's the basics are there. But then when they get to Neverland, there's some differences. Now, I was really interested in what they were going to do with the Native American element from the original. It's looking back on it, it gets kind of cringy now, right? So back in the day, all the kind of cliches and the generalizations and sort of whatever, the cartoonish way that they were doing the Native Americans, we were used to that. And it didn't really offend us. And, whether it offended Native Americans or not at the time, I don't know. But we've kind of, grown up a little bit in our treatment of the Native Americans and trying to view them in media in a more healthy, respectful way. And so it's not, so I was just wondering how they were going to do that. And they really don't focus a lot on the whole Native American tribe that's there in Neverland. And they really don't focus on, the mermaids as much. They don't focus on some of these other elements that are in Neverland. They really just focus on the Lost Boys and Peter Pan and the pirates. And then they bring in Tiger Lily as if she's kind of like this kind of other element on the island of Neverland, in this world. And she's very heroic, and she can fight. And, it's a little cliche with what you do with modern characters, right? With modern women characters, they can take care of themselves, and she's very wise. And so she didn't really have much of a character. I know they were trying to make her really strong, and I thought she was cool, but it wasn't cool in a way that really added much depth to her. But Tiger Lily was cool, and I like what they did, but I was just really curious to see how they were going to handle that, because like I said, it was a little cringy nowadays looking back at the original. And another thing that they kind of changed around was that the cast is way more diverse, racially and culturally, and they had girls in the Lost Boys, and they had the little moment. And Wendy herself is a little more aggressive and proactive. So, in the original, Wendy is a little proactive, but she's kind of a damsel in distress, right? Hook kidnaps her, and Peter Pan has to go save her. And that was more the style back in, 60s era and before of the damsel in distress, and Peter Pan being the hero and fighting the evil and all that stuff. So, but in this one, they kind of mix that up a little bit. She's a lot more active as a character, and I like that. She's a lot more heroic herself as a character, and I like that. Another change that they did was they didn't really do the whole jealousy element between Wendy and Tinkerbell. So in the original, Captain Hook is able to manipulate the jealousy that Tinkerbell is feeling because Peter Pan is kind of sweet on Wendy, and he's giving her great treatment, and so his old friend Tinkerbell is kind of jealous of that. And Hook in the original, he manipulates her. Well, they don't really do that in this one. There seems to be more tension between Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. Like, he doesn't listen to her, and he acts like he can tell what she says, but he really doesn't. And so Wendy and Tinkerbell form more of a bond at that point. And this is where the movie starts to get a little convoluted and loses its way a little bit. I know what they were trying to do, and I actually like what they were trying to do. But I'll go over why it didn't work here in a couple minutes. But the final thing that they changed was they gave a little bit more of a backstory to Captain Hook. And in reality, this movie could have almost been called just Wendy or Captain Hook. But they already had a movie called Hook, right, with Robin Williams, which is a classic in and of itself. One of my favorite movies. So they really go more into the backstory of Captain Hook and how he becomes evil. And it's not just that he is a grown-up or not just that he's a pirate, but there's some history between Peter Pan and James Hook. And Wendy starts to discover some of this history. And so there's more of a redemptive element in this movie of redeeming the villain of Captain Hook, because there used to be this friendship, there used to be this history, and now they're enemies, and Hook has grown up, and Peter Pan just wants to stay a boy. And so there's a redemptive element to that, which I really, really liked. Actually, I really did. And yet, and what it pulls away from, though, is, or at least the way they did it, was it pulled away from the connection that Peter Pan and Wendy have. Now, the movie is called Peter Pan and Wendy. And yet, I feel that's the relationship that suffers the most in the whole movie. You get a better relationship, connection, and chemistry with Captain Hook, and Jude Law plays Captain Hook, and he does a pretty good job, and Peter Pan, and you get a great relationship between Wendy and Tinkerbell, and you throw Tiger Lily in there, and Wendy and some of the Lost Boys, but you don't really get that connection between Peter Pan and Wendy, and that's the title of the movie. And I thought that was kind of odd myself. And the other thing that's kind of a recurring theme is this. So there's two main themes that they kind of move through with the movie. The first one is motherhood. So, first of all, Wendy is kind of rebellious a little towards her mom, gives her some lip there in the beginning, I don't really want to grow up sort of thing, and apologizes. And there's this tension between her and her mother. Again, that could have deepened. They could have done better with that, in my opinion. The writing of that, the showing of that tension, because they were trying to do the Uncle Buck thing at the end, where there's this reconciliation at the end between daughter and mother. It was better done by John Hughes and Uncle Buck. I'll just put it that way. And so, but there's this motherhood theme with Captain Hook. There's this motherhood theme with the Lost Boys. Like, they miss their mom. And then Peter Pan is arguing, no, mothers just tell you what to do. And so, again, they could have not honed in on it more, but done kind of a better job of making there's some tension between Wendy and her mom there in the beginning, and for it to really pay off there at the end. And then the other theme is that, Peter Pan has this line, right? To die is a great adventure. And that's in Hook, and they play with it in Hook, and he kind of turns it on its head at the end. Robin Williams' character as Hook, as Peter Pan, saying, oh, but to live would be an awfully big adventure. And they kind of use that it's in their own way in Peter Pan and Wendy, where she ends up saying, to grow up would be a great adventure. And, when Wendy is talking with Captain Hook, she says, okay, yeah, the problem isn't that you grew up, is that you grew up wrong. And I thought that was actually really interesting. I really appreciated that. So some of those elements were interesting and changes. But again, I felt like they could have landed the plane a whole lot better had they set it up better earlier on. And that's something that as writers, we have to pay attention to. If we want this to pay off in the end, we have to give the right stakes. We have to give the right setups. We have to, and not telegraph it, because we want a little bit of a twist and some surprises at the end. But we got to kind of set it up better and then pay it off really well. And I felt like the movie fell short in some of that. One thing that's it's kind of minor, but I really did enjoy it. I really liked the pirate songs. I thought the pirate songs were awesome. Like, they didn't sing "You Can Fly." There was a lullaby, like a mother's lullaby, that they returned to. I thought that was really interesting. So they did something different with the music, and I kind of liked it. And I liked that the pirates were the ones that were, raucous and singing songs and stuff like that. That was kind of cool. But their songs were dark, and I thought it was interesting. Jim Gaffigan played Smee. I thought that was an odd choice. I love Jim Gaffigan, and yet, does he do a great British accent? Do we think of Jim Gaffigan as like a character actor? I mean, kinda. He was in 13 Going on 30 as the taxi driver. I mean, he's a great stand-up comedian. But again, was he anywhere close to Bob Hoskins and Hook, right? I mean, like, just nowhere close. So again, I just felt like there were some of these elements that kind of fell flat to me, and I really wanted them to work well because I wanted this to be amazing. And there were parts of it I liked, and some of the action was cool, and I liked how they dealt with Wendy being more of a heroine herself. So I liked that part. But again, I just felt like they could have wrapped it up in a much better way. So I give it like a C. If I'm doing like a grading, like, it kind of passes. It's average, better than some of the live action ones that they've done. But I would not put it up there with my top two, which I didn't mention them earlier. My top two of the live action, I think number one is Pete's Dragon. They changed a lot and actually made that a better movie, in my opinion. And then Cinderella. I thought they did a great job with Cinderella. And those are the two kind of high water marks for the live action for me. All the other ones are kind of duds. And this one is not as much of a dud, but it's worth watching, and it's cool and it's fun. But just got to remember, you might want to go watch the original after you're done. All right. So this has been Great Stories Change the World with author M.B. Mooney. And I hope you just like and tell me what you think of this video, and tell me what you think of Peter Pan and Wendy, and put that in the comments, man. Put them in the comments, and remember to like and follow and share and all of that stuff, okay? Peace.